My brother told me on a Tuesday. We were in his workshop. Sawdust on everything, the smell of cedar. He was sanding a piece of wood. Didn't look up. He just said, "Sophie, there's something I need to tell you." I was a third-year med student. I was used to delivering information in controlled conditions. I sat down on a stool and I said, "Okay." He kept sanding. He said, "I'm gay. I've been seeing someone for almost 2 years. His name is Carlos. He's really good, and I need you to help me figure out how to tell Mama and Papa." I looked at my brother's hands, moving in that slow, even rhythm. The same hands that built the bookshelf in my bedroom when I was 12. The same hands that were holding something he had been carrying alone for I didn't know how long. I didn't ask that. I asked, "Is he good to you?" Mateo finally looked up. He said, "Yeah, he really is." And I said, "Then we'll figure it out." What I didn't understand, not yet, was what figuring it out was going to cost me. "Thank you. I'm okay. I'm good. It's just I haven't said all of this in order before."
Sophia, welcome to Unspoken. Take a breath. We've got time. Good evening. This is Unspoken, the show where the people who carried it finally get to put it down, at least for an hour. I'm Harvey. Tonight, we're joined by a third-year medical student from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Her name is Sofia Reyes-Montoya. She is 24 years old. She is the youngest in her family. And 8 months ago, her brother trusted her with a secret and asked her to help carry it across the most important dinner table of their lives. Before we go further, tonight's story is drawn from real experiences. Details have been changed. This episode was produced with AI assistance, visuals, voice, script, all reviewed by human hands. This show exists for everyone navigating these stories, from every angle of the table. If that's you, subscribe. Tell one person. It matters.
Okay, so Sundays in the Reyes-Montoya household are basically a religion. And I mean that literally and also just as a fact of our lives. My family is Catholic, very Catholic. But even if you subtract the church part, Sunday was still sacred. That's the word for it.
Sophia, you're in your third year of medical school. Tell me what Sundays look like at your house growing up.
Okay, so Sundays in the Reyes-Montoya household are basically a religion. And I mean that literally and also just as a fact of our lives. My family is Catholic, very Catholic. But even if you subtract the church part, Sunday was still sacred. That's the word for it. Abuelita Lupe, my grandmother, she lives with us, has since I was born. She is 75 years old. She speaks almost no English. She has strong opinions about everything. And she makes the best pozole in the state of New Mexico. Full stop. People have driven from Santa Fe for that pozole. Sunday lunch was non-negotiable. I don't care if you had a shift, a test, a wedding, somewhere else. You called ahead, you came, you sat down, you ate. Mama Gloria, she and Abuelita would start cooking Saturday night. Papa Ernesto, he would set the table. He always set the table. Every Sunday, same plates, same arrangement. My dad is a man of very few words, but he shows his love through repetition. Same plates, same table, every week. Mateo and I would show up, and there would be too much food, and Abuelita would tell me I looked skinny, and tell Mateo he looked tired, and tell Papa something in Spanish too fast for me to follow. And we'd eat, and it was good. It was really good. Mateo he's 6 years older than me. So growing up, he was the one who protected me at school, who taught me to ride a bike, who took me to my first concert. He's steady. That's the word. He's the person in a room who, when something goes wrong, everyone looks to. Even my dad looks to him.
Where was Mateo in all of that?
He took over my grandfather's workshop when Abuelo died, learned woodworking from scratch, YouTube videos, library books, trial and error, built half the furniture in our house. There's a dining table he made out of reclaimed wood that my mom cries about sometimes because it's so beautiful. He's not someone you worry about. He's someone who worries about everyone else. That's why it took me a while to see the signs. Because Mateo, his version of struggling looks a lot like his version of fine. He'd been quieter than usual for about a year before he told me, coming to Sunday lunch but leaving earlier, on his phone in ways that felt different, not distracted, just private. And he'd been working on something in the workshop that he wouldn't show anybody. He kept the door closed, which he never does. He said it was a commission. I believed him. I had no reason not to. The first time I saw the box was by accident. I had gone to the workshop to borrow a clamp for a project, don't ask. It was a med school thing. Someone's anatomy model needed a fix. Mateo was out getting supplies. The workshop door was unlocked. I found the clamp and I was about to leave, and I saw it on the workbench. A small wooden box, maybe 8 inches long, cedar and walnut inlay, the kind of craftsmanship that makes you stop walking. Hinged lid, and carved into the top, not painted, carved was a name, Carlos. I stood there for a second, and then I left the clamp where it was, and I walked home and I thought, I need to wait for him to tell me. 2 weeks later, he did. I knew the name. I didn't know the story. Those aren't the same thing.
You already knew walking into that workshop conversation.
The difference was seeing him say it. Watching the person I'd known my whole life hold something that fragile out in the open. The box told me a fact. Mateo telling me made it real in a way that required me to respond, not just to know.
What was the difference when he actually said it out loud?
And the first thing I said, which I'm still proud of, I asked if Carlos was good to him. Because that's the only thing that mattered to me in that moment. Not how long, not how, just, is he okay? Is someone taking care of my brother? He said yes. And then he cried a little. Not a lot, Mateo doesn't cry a lot, but a little. And I got off the stool and I hugged him and he said, I've needed to tell you for so long. I said, I know. I didn't know, but I said it.
And he said yes.
About 3 weeks in, he asked me to keep it between us while he figured out how to tell Mamá and Papá. I said yes. Of course I said yes. He was my brother and he needed time.
How long before you started to feel the weight of what he'd asked you to carry?
But here's the thing about carrying someone else's secret in a family like mine. You're at Sunday lunch every week. You're looking at your mother who has no idea. You're looking at your father who has no idea. You're making conversation about school, about the weather, about the Lobos game. And you are sitting on information that is going to change everything, and you have no idea when the grenade is going off, and you can't tell anyone. I had my study group friends. I couldn't tell them. I had my best friend Maya. I couldn't tell her. The only person I could talk to about it was Mateo. And talking to Mateo about it meant managing his anxiety on top of my own. That's exactly what I became. I became the container for both of us, and I went home after those calls, and I had no container.
You became the container?
That he had been loving someone the way our family loves. With his hands, with time, with the kind of care that takes weeks and doesn't ask for anything back.
Go back to the box. You saw Carlos's name carved in walnut and cedar. What did you understand about your brother in that moment that you hadn't understood before?
That box wasn't something you make for someone you're casual about. That box was the same love language as my father setting the table every Sunday. Patient, precise, repeated. I understood that my brother had not changed. He had just been showing me who he was. All along, in the only language he knew. And I had been close enough to see it, and I hadn't known what I was looking at. Yes, every single time. I'd go back through memories, Mateo at 15, not wanting to go to the school dance. Mateo at 20, moving into an apartment alone when all his friends were roommatering up. Mateo building things for people who mattered to him. Always building. Always giving. Never asking.
That's the thing that undoes you, isn't it? Not the revelation. The retroactive understanding.
I thought, how long was he doing this alone? I never asked him. I still haven't. I don't think I want to know the number. The Sunday he decided to tell them, we had talked about it the week before. He'd been talking to Carlos about it. They'd picked the date together. I didn't know that until after. That they'd planned it out, that Carlos had been coaching him, that the night before Mateo had gone over what he was going to say. I showed up to Sunday lunch knowing. Mateo arrived after me. He looked calm. The way you look when you've made a decision that scares you but you've already decided. We ate. Abuelita's pozole, Mama's rice, the whole meal. Mateo waited until Mama was bringing out the fruit. He said, I need to tell you all something, and he told them. Papa put down his fork. He looked at Mateo. He looked at the table. He stood up. He walked to the garage. The door closed. No words.
Walk me through the room.
Mama started crying immediately. Not screaming, not yelling, crying, the way she cries at movies. Like the feeling just went straight from her heart to her eyes with no filter. I reached under the table and I found Mateo's hand. I held it. I could feel him deciding whether to stand up and leave. I held tighter. And then Abuelita, who had been quiet through all of it, eating her fruit, she put down her fork. She looked at Mateo. She said in Spanish, she said, Ya, siéntense a comer. Enough. Sit down and eat. And then she reached across the table and she held Mateo's face in her hands, the way she does when we're little, when she's checking if we have a fever, and she said, Eres mi nieto. Eso no cambia nada. You are my grandson. That doesn't change anything. And she kissed his forehead. I looked at my grandmother, 75 years old, grew up in Chihuahua, never left her faith, never questioned her church, and she had just done the thing that none of us were sure anyone would do. She had just said, "You are mine," first. I don't know where that came from in her. I don't know if it was faith or just love so old it didn't need a framework. But I have thought about it almost every day since. Mama cried for most of that afternoon. She hugged Mateo eventually, that first day. But she was grieving something. Not Mateo, but the version of the future she had built in her head. The daughter-in-law, the grandchildren a certain way. It's real grief. I don't dismiss it. She's been in prayer group about it. She's talked to our priest who was more compassionate than I expected. She loves Mateo. She's working on what that looks like now. She's not done, but she's working.
And your mother?
Papa was in the garage for 3 weeks. I mean that literally and also kind of metaphorically. He came inside to sleep. He ate dinner, but he didn't talk to Mateo. He was in the garage working on something. He does electrical projects, hobby stuff, and he just went there after dinner every night and came to bed late.
And your father?
3 weeks. And then one afternoon, he drove to Mateo's workshop. Mateo texted me, "Papa is here, just sitting." And I texted back, "Don't move." Papa sat there for an hour while Mateo worked, didn't say anything. And then Papa looked at the workbench and he said, quiet, like he was just thinking out loud, "How long did that piece take you?" Mateo said, "Which one?" Papa pointed at a cabinet Mateo was finishing. Mateo said, "About 3 weeks." Papa nodded. And then he said, "Your grandfather took 3 weeks on anything worth doing. He got up, he went home, that was it. That was the whole conversation." But Mateo called me afterward and said, "I think he's going to be okay." And I believed him, because I know what it means when Ernesto Reyes-Montoya compares something to our grandfather's work. He found the exact language he had, which is quality takes time, and your work, what you make, has value. I think that was the most he could do in that moment, and I think Mateo understood it, because they speak the same language. Hands, patience, things built slowly.
He couldn't say it directly, but he found the language he had.
The hardest part for me, and nobody asks about this part, was the 3 weeks before Papa went to the workshop. Because I was the one fielding calls from Mateo, asking if I thought Papa would come around. I was the one calling Mama and trying to gently ask how she was doing without giving away that I was also managing Mateo's terror. I was studying for my shelf exams and I was doing emotional triage on 3 people simultaneously and I had nobody to do triage on me.
The hardest part for you, what nobody asked about?
Not until after Papa's visit to the workshop. After the 3 weeks were over, we went for a walk, Mateo and me. And I said, "I need you to know that I love you and I would do this again. And I also need you to know it was really hard. And I was really alone in it."
How long before you said that out loud to Mateo?
He stopped walking. He looked at me like I'd said something that landed somewhere he wasn't expecting. And he said, "I'm sorry. I didn't think about what I was asking you to hold." I said, "You were scared? You weren't thinking strategically?" He said, "Still?" We didn't say anything for a while. And then he said, "Carlos wants to meet you. Officially. Not just he knows who you are from everything I've told him, but he wants to sit across from you." I said, "Tell him to bring food. I'm always hungry. I'm a med student. We're trained to push past our own needs in service of the patient. I know what it feels like to defer yourself, and I recognized it happening, and I still let it go on too long. Because he needed me, and he's my brother."
There's something in what you just described, realizing in real time that being someone's safe person doesn't mean you don't have needs. Some people never figure that out.
But I also learned something. The way I told him, not as an accusation, just as a fact, and the way he received it, which was without defensiveness, just with, "I'm sorry, I see it," that was its own kind of intimacy. The kind you can only have with someone you trust completely. That conversation was almost better than the original one, because it was just us. No secret. No plan. Just 2 people being honest about what something cost. Carlos came to Sunday lunch 2 months ago. Abuelita made extra pozole. Carlos brought pan dulce from this bakery he loves in Albuquerque's South Valley. He sat down, and Abuelita looked at him for a long moment, and then said something in Spanish, and Mateo translated. She said his pan dulce selection was acceptable. That's the highest praise she gives anyone the first time.
Where are things now?
Mama talked to him for 45 minutes about his family, his cooking. He's a chef, his Puerto Rican grandmother's recipes versus her Mexican grandmother's recipes. They found 17 points of agreement and 2 points of passionate disagreement, and Mama said she'd make him her version of arroz con pollo to prove her point. Papa shook his hand when he arrived, said, Mateo says you're good in the kitchen. Carlos said, I try. Papa said good, and then he went to get more chairs. That was it. That was Papa welcoming him. Mateo sat at that table and he just let himself be there. That's the best way I can say it. He wasn't managing anything. He wasn't performing. He was just present with his family and his person at the same table where we've eaten every Sunday my whole life.
And Mateo?
I watched him pass the bread to Carlos without thinking about it. The way you do when someone is just yours and you don't have to announce it. And I thought, this is why it was worth it. All of it. The 8 months, the triage calls, the shelf exams in the middle of someone else's crisis. This moment, my brother passing bread without thinking about it, is why. Yeah, that's the whole thing right there.
He built Carlos a box with his name in it. And then Carlos came to the table where the bread gets passed.
I think I told the part I'm allowed to tell. The part that's mine. The rest of it is Mateo's. And I hope someday he comes and tells it himself. But this part being the one in the middle, the one who carries it across that part, is mine. And it was heavier than I expected, and I'm glad I did it. Both of those things are true.
Sofia, your brother said you have your own story. Do you feel like you told it tonight?
Thank you for asking.
Sofia Reyes-Montoya, calling from Albuquerque, thank you. Sofia's brother asked her to come in his place, and he said, you have your own story. He was right. Here's what came in. From San Antonio, Texas, a woman named Claudia shares this. I was the Sofia for my sister 15 years ago. She came out to me first, asked me to help her tell our parents. Our parents are Cuban Catholic, very traditional. What this episode got exactly right is the loneliness of being the one who knows. You're at every family dinner carrying this thing, pretending you don't have it, watching your parents not know it's a strange, private grief. My sister is married now. Her wife is the best thing that ever happened to our family, and our parents adore her. But those months before, I still feel them when I think about it. To every sibling in that position, you're doing something important, even when it's invisible. Especially then, Claudia from San Antonio, even when it's invisible, especially then. From Albuquerque, New Mexico, Father Marco, a Catholic priest, writes, I serve a parish that includes many Latino families, and I hear the weight in this story. My faith teaches certain things, and I hold those teachings carefully. But I've also sat with enough families to know that love the kind Sofia describes, the kind her grandmother showed, does not wait for doctrine to give it permission. Abuelita Lupe did something ancient and simple. She recognized her grandchild. I think that instinct is holy. I think that instinct is what we are supposed to nurture in our communities. This story is asking me something. I am listening. Father Marco from Albuquerque, that instinct is holy. This one comes from no listed location. The account is at Middle Child Energy. Can we talk about how Sofia basically had to do emotional labor for 4 people, her brother, both parents, and herself for 8 months, while also being in medical school, while also not being able to tell anyone? And at the end of it, Mateo said, I didn't think about what I was asking you to hold. Good that he acknowledged it, but I want to say out loud, the siblings who hold these secrets are doing unpaid, invisible work. It's beautiful that they do it. It's also a lot, and the people who ask them to do it should say thank you earlier than after the crisis is over. Named. The work is real. Thank you earlier. If Sofia's story is reaching you tonight, if you've been the one in the middle, the one who carries it across, leave a comment. Share this. This show finds the right people when you pass it on. This comment is from Diego, 25, from Los Angeles, California, and Diego is a woodworker. I'm gay. I'm also a carpenter, like Mateo. I make furniture. When Sofia described the box cedar and walnut inlay, name carved in, I stopped the video. Because I have made things like that, objects that carried what I couldn't say out loud. A cutting board for someone I loved that had a small carving on the back that only he would know the meaning of. A shelf I built for my parents' house right before I came out that I can't look at now without thinking I was trying to tell you. The things we make when we can't speak, they are full of language. I hope Mateo knows that Carlos will always know what that box meant. Those objects hold things words can't reach. Diego from Los Angeles. Those objects hold things words can't reach. From Phoenix, Arizona, a woman named Rosa, 52, writes, I am a Latina mother. My son came out to me 4 years ago. I was not Gloria. I did not cry. I was not graceful. I said things I regret. It took me a long time. I want to say this to every parent who did not handle it the way they wanted to. You are not done. The relationship is not finished. My son and I have rebuilt something real. It took work from both of us. It required me to choose my child over my discomfort again and again until it became natural. It is not the story I thought I was living, but it is a beautiful one. Keep going. Rosa from Phoenix. Keep going. From Chicago, Illinois, a woman named Priya, 30, who describes herself as a longtime friend of a sibling who came in. Sofia talked about being the container. That's the most accurate description I've ever heard for what that role feels like. I was my best friend's container for over a year when she was figuring out how to come out to her family. I loved doing it. I also lost a lot of sleep doing it. What Sofia said at the end, telling Mateo that it was hard, and him receiving it without defensiveness, that's the conversation I never had. I held it, and I never said it was heavy. I just let go eventually and hoped the relationship would survive the silence. It did, mostly. But I want to tell anyone who's been the container, it's okay to need a container too. Priya from Chicago, it's okay to need a container too. And last tonight from Albuquerque, New Mexico, 22-year-old Valentina. I'm Latina and queer, and I haven't come out to my family. I've been waiting for the right sibling, the one who'll be my Sofia. Tonight I realized I've been waiting for someone to volunteer instead of asking. My younger brother is 18. He's kind, he's close to our parents. I've been protecting him from the ask because I didn't want to put him in that position. But after hearing Sofia, the way she describes it, the weight and also the privilege of being trusted, I wonder if I've been protecting him from something he would actually want. I'm going to ask him this week. I'm terrified, but I think Sofia just gave me the courage. Valentina from Albuquerque. Ask him. He might have been waiting to be asked. Sofia came tonight in her brother's place. He said, you have your own story. She does. 8 months of Sunday dinners. The box with a name carved in cedar. Her grandmother's hands on Mateo's face. 3 weeks of garage silence. And one afternoon, Mateo passing bread to Carlos without thinking about it. That's what all the carrying was for. Not the dramatic moment, the ordinary one, the bread, the table, the person who is just yours now, in front of the people who matter most. To every sibling out there who has been the bridge, you are not the supporting character in someone else's story. You are living your own. And sometimes the bravest thing you do is hold the door open long enough for everyone else to walk through. This is Unspoken. I'm Harvey. Next week, a story about the other side of the table. We'll see you then.